Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Facebook Live session. Um, we are talking about homeschooling during the month of May, and we've had a series of speakers talking about different ways to provide education to our children. 2 weeks ago, we had Dr. Saley talking about how he hacked educational system for his children. Last week, we had his daughter, Sayana Lee, coming to speak to us about how she homeschooled herself in high school and how she ended up being at UC Berkeley as a freshman this year. And for this week, for today, I am so happy to have my great friend Jean Hong from K-Pop Homeschool to talk about her homeschooling journey with her children. So here is Jean. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Thank-
Hi. This is my what light sticks that we have. This is for NCT.
Sounds good.
Hi. My name is Jean, and I have three children. Actually, one is an adult and one is getting there. My oldest is 20. My middle just turned 17, and my youngest is 10.
Wow. So
Oh, and go ahead.
no. I was just gonna let people know that I've known Jean since I was in high school, and I'm so happy that we can raise our children are about the same age, and we can go through this homeschool journey. Raising children together. She's been my go-to resource when I homeschooled my children, and I'm so happy that she's here to share her stories and her wisdom with us. So maybe Jean, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also a little bit about why you started homeschooling your children?
Thank you so much, Amy, for even hosting these. I've been really enjoying a lot of students, wanting to go to really competitive colleges. So students, having a lot of, I don't know, emotional issues surrounding that. It's a competitive field, but also, and I'm sure it's so much more competitive now, but that experience sort of stayed with me. It was great to help some students, reach their goals, but there's a lot of students, who went through a really hard time going through that. So I think because that experience stayed with me, and then once I got married and started having children, my oldest child has special needs. She is neurodiverse. She was a late talker. And so when she started going to even just like preschool or some of those organized activities, she had a hard time following along. She definitely had her own way of learning and own way of going about things. But, I felt like I spent a lot of my time trying to make her fit in whatever, school activity was going on. Circle time was a very difficult thing when all she wanted to do was like look around the classroom and explore on her own. So really, because of that experience, I think we were just thinking, is there something else that we can do? And I was very friend who was homeschooling her child as well. Her child also had similar needs and a sort of similar profile. And so she is the one who taught me a lot about what to do to homeschool in California. So we've been living in California this whole time. Homeschooling is going to look differently, probably just legally for each state in terms of what's required. But in California, we have a very supportive homeschooling laws, and so it's really wonderful. So hopefully today I'll have a chance to share some of our experience, and if anyone is kind of considering homeschooling, that it's a way of, I guess, like a lifestyle, and also a way of supporting your children and a way of like just growing together, not only for your child, but for us, it's been great for our family.
Sounds good. So touching upon, you kind of touch upon a little bit. Actually, before I move forward, I had little glitches with my microphone. So for a little bit, I didn't get to hear it from my end, but I'm hoping that the Facebook users got to hear your audio. We'll check it
Okay.
out in the recording later on. But I'm so sorry
Okay.
if I looked like I was going crazy because my
No,
microphone
that's
got unplugged. But
I can just keep going. I don't even know because I
Good, good.
love definitely a subject that I'm passionate about. And I'm just so glad to be able to talk to you. I mean, we've always talked about different ways, things that sort of out of the box thinking and different things that we can do for our children to help support them. So I always love that too.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, can you actually get into how we as parents can homeschool our children in California? I know that there are a couple ways you can do that. So, would you be able to tell us specifically how you did it?
Sure. So when I first started out with my oldest, technically there's no such thing as homeschooling. It's actually in California, they support every child from the ages of 6 to 18 being at a school. So, in order to homeschool, or what we did with my oldest, is we actually filed a private school affidavit. That meant that I was a private school and with a student of one. You just have to file this form once a year with the state, and it's pretty simple. And I'm the one who holds myself accountable. I do follow along to try to see what the state standards are, just to make sure, and of course to meet the needs of my child. But that's basically what I did for my oldest. There are other ways to homeschool, and so instead of setting up a private school myself, I could also find another private school, and that's kind of what Dr. Lee also mentioned. When he had his school, there are also probably a lot of parents know about charter schools in California. There are also charter schools that are perfect for homeschooling. That means that maybe they won't have a brick and mortar location. It's a non-classroom based type of learning. And that's actually what I'm doing with my oldest has graduated from high school. My middle is in high school right now, but she is also going through a charter program. I kind of wanted that for the two of them because uh, actually in California, I can also graduate them. I can give them our own diploma from our own private school. But I did want them to graduate from a charter program so that they can have an accredited institution for giving them their diploma. And that was a little bit more for my oldest because uh, I don't think actually you can have your own diploma and have your child go to college, any university. But for some, like let's say if you go to a trade school or some sort of art programs, sometimes they require a diploma from an accredited institution. So I just wanted to make sure that we covered all the bases. And so we did that for my oldest. And so my second will be also graduation from a charter program. And also, I'm using the same charter program for my youngest, but for him, next year we may go with the private school affidavit again.
So it's a pretty easy to go from one to the other, moving it.
That, that's one of the wonderful things, too. It's flexible. Year to year, you could change, maybe even mid year. If you find something that's not working out for you, you can always, like for myself, I always think I can always file a PSA or private school affidavit. So it's wonderful that we can be covered legally until, I figure out what we need to do to help support my child in their learning. And yeah, it seems so easy, and it is, but it's as difficult as you can make it. If you want, you can try to for the charter programs, you have to fulfill their requirements, or what they require within their charter school. But it can be as easy as filing a PSA and being just accountable to yourself.
Okay. I have homeschooled my children by having them enrolled in this homeschool charter schools, and we were able to get
Hmm.
some funding that we can use toward either buying supplies for the school or paying for lessons or classes.
Right.
When you file for that affidavit, do you get any kind of support, like financial support from the state, or are you pretty much on your own?
You're definitely on your own. So that's definitely, thank you for mentioning that. I forgot to mention that, but um, some people will also say the price of freedom of being able to, give your child whatever you think they need is even more valuable than, funding. But yes, that's true. I do have currently I have all my kids in a charter program because we do receive funds to use for certain vendors, and some of the vendors can be what we use is we use it for tutoring, we use it for some art classes where she could learn with a really great teacher. And so those charter funds help to pay for those classes. So it just depends on what you need, or what you're looking for. PSA is great because, for instance, with my oldest child, when she wasn't reading, and a lot of the charter schools were requiring it's sample work, documentation, a show of your progress, what you're doing at home educationally. And, it was difficult to show her progress when she wasn't reading and writing. So when I filed the PSA, it was great because I knew that she was learning on her own. She did eventually learn to read and write, but, on her own terms. We spent the time more doing things that she liked, doing art crafts, going to places, doing a lot of field trips. We live in such a great state. We have so many. I think Los Angeles alone has something like, was it 93 museums? And so, you can go to so many places and learn things, you know, that are outside of the classroom. There's hiking trails, there's, beaches, mountains. We've got so many different things, so many resources. So we spent a lot of time doing things. We also, the funny thing is, I like to tell people one of the schools that I sent my oldest to was even for preschool or kindergarten level. And so what we did is we took the money that we saved on the tuition and we bought Disney passes. At the time, the annual passes were a lot less than they were now. But we spent time going to Disneyland. And my daughter learned so much. And I think it helped a lot of her language development because a lot of it's repeated. You see, like she liked princesses then, not now at all, but she loved them then. And where else can you see princesses like referred to over and over again? And so that's one of the great things that we were able to do when we were homeschooling her.
Sounds good. You have three different children. So, can you tell us like a more specific picture of like what they do, like how you design this homeschool kind of program for each of your child, depending on their needs or their likes? Maybe
Mm.
going from your
Okay.
first child, the second child, and third child.
Okay. And I know I haven't spoken about K-pop at all during this whole time. I need to like go back to that too. But um, K-pop homeschool is just an idea that came up between my middle child and myself. It was actually really great. She's the middle child, and also my oldest has her needs, and my youngest, my son, he has ADHD. So she's really in the middle, and she's more of a typical learner. And so we spent a lot of time also, I have to admit, for my oldest, going to speech therapy and other social skills groups, to help her develop in the areas that I felt that she needed some help with. So my middle child, K-pop was something that she started liking like in middle school, and I really like K-pop. And we both, use that as a time to bond and go to a lot of K-pop events together. Um, so sorry, let me backtrack a little. Okay, so with my oldest, it was clear from the start that she expressed herself really well through art, through visual means. So a lot of things that we did were, field trips and art crafts, and also trying to meet other people who maybe were similar to us. So, park days, there are a lot of homeschooling groups, and it's wonderful because you can find those resources online, sometimes Facebook, meetup groups. Back when I was starting, it was Yahoo groups, message boards. We got to know other people, both locally and a little bit further out. So, I spent a lot of time driving too to meet them. But, you know, uh, socialization was something that was mentioned last week. I do feel like we had to put a little bit extra effort in order to make sure that not only my children's socialization needs were met, but also mine too. It's kind of, as a parent, we're always like worrying about, like, are we doing enough for our children? And that definitely is the case for my homeschooling. So it was really wonderful to meet other homeschooling moms and to hear what they're doing. It was a great network, place to find out, oh, this class over here has classes during the middle of the week, like Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the benefit for some of those, like, let's say if you wanted to take taekwondo or some sort of art class, they usually have a lot of classes after school and on the weekends. But maybe their facility is a little emptier during the middle of the week. And for us homeschoolers, our schedules are a lot more open up, and we have the time. And so sometimes they'll have even more discounted classes available. So we took advantage of that too. Um, and then for my middle child, her following her interests, she it's not even just with K-pop, but anything that she was interested in. All three of my children learned to read on their own. I think that we kind of have this idea that we have to send our kids to school in order to learn the basic skills. There was something I read that if we had to send our children to school, excuse me, at the age of 12 months, then we would start thinking that we needed to send them to school in order for our children to learn to walk or to talk. But when we all know it's not true, developmentally, they do grow on their own, and everybody has a different timeline, different developmental kind of like way of following. I think it's the same for reading. It certainly, you have to make exception for some students who may have a learning disability. That's definitely the case for my oldest. And so I did feel like I needed to support her in some ways. But in general, I think all children no, we're born to learn. You see it, when they're toddlers. You see it, that through trial and error. And that can definitely go with the rest of learning. So with my middle child, when she was really into K-pop, uh, she started writing a blog and kind of expressing, and sharing what she did. And also, if you know K-pop fans, they are very passionate people. The fandom is very passionate. Also, they have full of opinions. Oh, this member is the best. Oh no, their management company is not doing a great job in supporting this group. There's so much to talk about. And she needed a place. She found a place, and she about it. That it's just wonderful. It wasn't anything where I had to assign her an assignment. Okay, write an essay where you persuade me, like a persuasive essay, that uh, Stray Kids is the most underrated group or something like that. She was doing this naturally. So I really think that, with our experiences with homeschooling, um, children needs in order to grow up and become an adult, in order to understand the world around us, and in order to find something that we want to further study or go into, or maybe find a job, whatever we want to do in life. I think homeschooling is such a great way, and almost like a direct way of doing that for every individual. And then for my youngest child, he basically he's has ADHD. I know that in a classroom he would have had a really difficult time because behavior issues. But with homeschooling, what that did for us is he was able to learn while he was running or jumping. Sometimes I think that movement even helped him too, because sometimes when he memorizes things, he really knows it. It's very solid. We don't have to repeat things, but I don't know, it's the way that his mind works. And I know that if, because we're homeschooling, I have a chance to sort of give him that opportunity, like show what kind of works for him, what doesn't, and also to really understand him, how he learns. And even though in school he probably would have gotten some support, there's therapy, there's IEPs available. I I don't like the fact that, everything is sort of taken a look at as a disorder. And how are we going to fix this? How are we going to fix this child? But I think homeschooling for us is like, okay, well, this is their learning profile. This is their individual personality. They tend to do this. They tend to not do this. You know, maybe how can I support so that they're more well-rounded? They're exposed to different things, and how are they going to maybe just further develop themselves? And sometimes they show me the way too. It's really interesting. You know, like he knows everything about animation. That's one of his current interests right now, animation, especially classic animation and the history of animation. All of this information is available to us, you know, YouTube videos, internet searches, things like that. Um, and so what we're going to do is actually we're going to go to Disney World. I didn't tell you this, Amy, but we're going to go on a field trip to Disney
Field
World.
trip.
He's going to be able to like go take a look at that. He doesn't care about Star Wars, but he loves animation. So hopefully we'll have a chance to like go to where Walt Disney, you know, established Disney World.
That's great. You know, one time at in Orange County at the no, I think it was at the LA Science Museum, they had a
Yeah.
special exhibit from Pixar.
Oh
And
yeah,
did we go together? We might have gone together.
we
I
went to.
can't.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think we went. Know that you had gone, but I did run into another homeschooling friend who went there. But yeah, we went to that. That was amazing to be able to see all the models and
Yes.
also the digital part. Like I remember Merida's hair. Was it from Brave? I think it is that the
Brave,
movie,
right.
but like the main character and how they had to animate even just the curls in her hair. Um, my son was too young then. He
Right.
just ran away it being with us. But my
Right.
older two really learned a lot from that field trip.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing, and I love how you mentioned the museum. That's something that even though my most of my kids are in the public school system, that's something that I try to do a lot during the weekends or summer if possible, because just that's a real learning. I mean, that goes into their core memory. You know, when they actually go and see things and touch things, and it makes the learning alive.
Yeah, I have to share something too. One of the benefits, you know, that I feel like with homeschooling is we have the time. You know, we have during the week, or you know, we could choose not to have as much homework. We could choose not to do that because I evaluate them a little differently. You know, I'm able to look at them individually and say, oh, it looks like she needs a little bit more work in, you know, I don't know, math or something, calculating or something like that. But one of the great things about when you go to the museums is we have been there and then we've seen some school field trips. They usually come in the morning up until lunchtime, and there's big groups of children, and the teachers have to have them go through each of the exhibits. Okay, here's this exhibit. Okay, everybody follow along and go here. Okay, let's go to the restroom. Let's get ready for lunch. And it's seemed to me a little bit quick, you know, and it's wonderful. I love teachers. I support everything, you know, especially during this whole time with the quarantine. I just don't know how teachers did it. And, you know, I really want to give them a lot of credit. But one of the greatest things that we were able to do with homeschooling is we were able to go there afterwards. And sometimes the docents would be there. It's after the big rush. We could get one-on-one like tours of different things. We had access. We were at the Cabrillo Museum in, I think is at San Pedro. They have a lab on site, and we were able to go into the lab and use their microscopes. There was only like a group of us that were like less than 10 homeschoolers, and they showed us how they grew some of the eggs. I forget what it is. It's the small fish, and then you can actually let the baby fish go back into the ocean. Oh, I'm totally having a brain fart right now, but um, you know, just the access to what they're doing on site, it was really incredible. And I don't know if we were on a regular field trip, you know, unless it was set up like that. But just generally, we're able to do that at most, if not all, of the museums, and get personalized attention and a lot of more, I think, quality, you know, experiences and at the museum that way.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, now let's talk a little bit more about your K-pop homeschool. I love checking out the posts that you're making on the Instagram and Facebook, and so tell us a little bit more about it.
So again, it was sort of born out of an idea with my teen and myself. she also happened to be working part-time for a friend of ours who's a professional photographer in helping her run her social media account. And also my daughter loves like kind of like the creative process of YouTube videos, also music videos and things like that. So she also had been taking like music theory, movie making, those types of classes at a learning center. So she had a lot of ideas. I thought I'm kind of comfortable with social media, and like any other mom, we like to post pictures of our kids and, oh, this is what we did, or kind of interact that way. But she had a lot of great ideas in terms of like the timing of a post, and how many views think it would get. It was just a really different way of thinking that I never thought of before. And so we thought, why don't we just document our homeschooling so that, first of all, for us, we can kind of look back on things and go, oh, wow, this is great. We did this then, but also maybe people what we do. And if they're in a position that they want to try to do homeschooling themselves, then we can kind of show, like, oh, we're doing all of this and homeschooling, and they're getting a good education. Um, and that's kind of how it came about. But we haven't been doing too much of it because there's a lot of K-pop events. There were so many before. We've been staying at home. So I have some things like on my gardening, or the baby birds that were in our backyard. But that's all part of homeschooling too. It's great. With my youngest, I know gardening. He's been helping me, and so we look at plant life cycles that way, and he gets to actually see it happen. And sometimes with gardening, things don't work out the way that you want. Just because you plant it and water it and gets enough sun, it may not other troubleshooting things that you have to do. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I never knew that before. And we're both kind of taking a look at, oh, maybe it needs more nitrogen from the soil or something like that. So there's just a lot of like learning opportunities everywhere you go, even in something in your backyard, like gardening.
I love that point because when I went to graduate school, I was surprised because in college when you do lab work, most of the time the
Yeah,
way they set it up, these experiments, is that they do work. If you follow the procedures, almost like a cookbook. But when I went to grad school, I'm like, oh my God, it does not work. What did I do wrong? What do I need to change? And that's actually what science is. You ask questions, you have hypotheses, but you have to do the
you're right.
experiments, and not everything, well, it works out. And that's actually real life too. So I love how you're incorporating the science and life lesson and into this just but the kids think that they're having fun just doing gardening because you know
Exactly. With school, it's kind of, there's a reason why they teach that, experimenting, right? But sometimes you get caught up with trying to follow that and doing it correctly in that way that you lose sight of why that was introduced in the first place. So I feel like by kind of cutting out that middleman, by doing that kind of work, we're doing live experiment. And this is, I think, applicable to so many different areas of life. It's not just gardening. It's not just, it could be, gosh, what is it? Oh, my middle child wanted to take a class at a community college. And there's a whole process to that too. And I helped her out in the beginning, but every time she wanted to take classes, she has to turn in some enrollment registration forms. She has to have it signed by me. She has to have it signed by her counselor at her high school. And then she has to, sometimes the classes will fill up. That whole process, that whole thing, navigating that has been a great learning experience for her too. And she's learned how to send emails to the right people, set up a schedule for herself when she has to meet with a counselor at the community college in order to get the approval to get into the class. I mean, it's endless, and I think all of these things, because she's comfortable with herself and confident in trying things and even maybe having things not work out, I think has been really helpful for her. But she really go to college and she wants to do a lot of these things. So that's why she's been taking college classes just to make sure, that she's ready for that. And also it's working out really well because she's actually taking some college classes that are fulfilling some of her high school requirements. So she's kind of doing two things at once, kind of killing two birds with one stone. And I think just like your other guest speaker from last week, she might be able to apply to college and then still be in like at least sophomore standing, maybe if not junior. She's kind of thinking whether or not she's going to apply as a transfer.
Sounds great. One question I have for you, Jean, is that whenever I talk to you, I feel like you yourself are a self learner. You're always reading. You're searching answers, searching for answers so that you can do something for your children. Do you have any advice for parents who are maybe thinking about trying homeschooling or even bringing these extra things that you've mentioned into their children's education? Like, do you have any advice for them? Is it time
There,
consuming or is it like,
it
how
can
to
be. I
make
mean,
it
we all
work?
know, right? As moms, we know that part of the reason why we're mom with a capital M is because it's management. We have to manage everything in the family, you know? So those types of skills will definitely be helpful. But I think there's like a misconception that you have to do everything on your own. You have to teach everything. And granted, I felt very confident coming into the process because I knew I could, if I had to teach different subjects or at least look it up. But there's so many resources available. First of all, in the state of California, we have at least, I think, three major organizations. It's the California Homeschool Network, CHN, and I think it's a Homeschooling of Southern California, or no, something, it's HSC, but they serve all of California. And there's also Christian organizations, CHEA. I'm not quite sure what that acronym stands for, but there's definitely places where you can get information, at least figuring out what you need to do if you want to start right now, if you want to start later on. They have great info packets and websites where you can look at that. Then getting to the sort of the gist of the entire homeschooling, I would recommend looking at your children. Maybe even asking, what do you want to learn? That's like such like a mind-blowing question, right? Like, because we're never asked that, in regular schools. I mean, you just kind of follow along, right? Trusting that you're going to cover everything that you need to know. But sometimes, kids might want to explore something. And then I also always fell back on reading, writing, and arithmetic. As long as I think even one of your guest speakers had said that too. As long as I kind of generally cover all of that too, it doesn't matter if it's science based, if it doesn't matter if it's animation, all of that can be worked into that too. Another thing that I would do is reach out for community. Grant, I guarantee you that there's going to be some homeschooling groups around you, and look around to see if you can find people, who have been homeschooling for a while, or, you can meet, make friends, your kids can make friends. Um, Homeschooling definitely has been growing. Like I said, back then I had to like search through my Yahoo message board in order to find more information. But the thing is, I think right now there's so much available for parents, even if you don't teach any of the subjects. You can also outsource. You can also have somebody. There's some where somebody else can hold your homeschooling records for you. There's different options for you. So, but if you do reach out to one of those major organizations, they'll have all that information there too. And for myself, I just followed my children's lead. It did look different sometimes from year to year. You had asked. Sometimes, we filed a PSA. Sometimes program. It just sort of depended on what the kids were, where they were at, and sort of as a family, what we were doing. Definitely when my older two were younger, we did more of filing the PSA just because they were younger and we did a lot of field trips. It helped because my husband was working on weekends. And so he was more available during the week. So we were able to go to a lot of places during the week together as a family. And that's what our homeschooling looked like. Now, I would say our homeschooling looks a little bit more traditional because we're using the charter program. And I don't have to do a whole lot. I just have to gather their sample work of sometimes of what they did, sometimes write up a description of what we're learning and manage that part, and then check in with my advising teacher, which we do once a month or once every 20 business days, I think is technically what we have to do.
Okay, sounds good. So, just remembering that you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to come up with everything and be the teacher. There are a lot of resources out there. And to be honest, when I chose to homeschool my children, at various points of their lives, I did turn to you and you told me about these groups. And I remember joining some of these Facebook groups and was just amazed by the just a sheer amount of resources and links and services that these parents were sharing. And they were just
Yeah.
phenomenal. Like the things that I've never known was possible. So,
I love the homeschooling community too because you tend to see a lot of veteran homeschoolers coming back, even if their children have gone through, let's say they've gone to high school, many of them still staying around and trying to share what they've gone through, um, and supporting. It's really beautiful, and there have been such generous homeschoolers who've shared a lot of their knowledge and their experiences, both good and bad. And I know that I definitely wouldn't be able to have done what I've been able to do with my family because of things that I've learned online. So yeah, I do think having a connection to some of these online apps is important, and being able to research a little bit. But there's definitely a lot of things that are already established that sometimes, depending on what kind of homeschooling that you're going to do, depending on what kind of schedule you want for your children, or if you don't want to schedule at all, that's fine too. Then that'll determine what kind of things you'll be looking for, and then you can try different things too. If this doesn't work out, you can always try something else too. So there's a lot of leeway for you as a homeschooler, and that's really helpful too.
so, so we talked about the benefits of homeschooling. What are some of the challenges that you face, or some things that we should keep in mind? Um,
Okay. Something we got from a KCON. It's really cute. Um, Challenges. I think it definitely is. All three of my children are different. I feel like they are so different in what they're doing. It's go to a school. You could have all of. Let's say if your children are close in age, you can just drop them off in one place, right? And then pick them up in the afternoon. So for homeschooling, it's been great because we can individualize it, but yes, it's trying to meet the needs of each person, having the schedule. So you should see our calendar. It's really, I'll bet your calendar is probably similar too, because with several children, it's color coded. Oh, on this day they have this. Oh, you want to make sure that everyone can do everything that they need. So that's can be challenging. But I guess I like that too, because I get kind of excited about just all the different things that they can learn. So I'm motivated to help them find, what they want to do. And it's so wonderful when you see that in your child, when they find something, or they meet a teacher that they really like, or they meet or they have the experience of like learning something new to them. It's so fulfilling. And so I'll totally do that just for them, because it's the benefits are so great. Another thing that I kind of mentioned a little bit is, I do agree. I think a lot of homeschoolers may say, oh, socialization is no problem because you're also socializing with your family. you know um, I would say that you're going to be comfortable with that. Your family is going to be together a lot. But what I try to do is, sometimes I need to have my alone time, or I need to make sure that I set time for myself as a mom. I think that's a challenge for a lot of parents just in general, but especially if you're really involved with taking care of your family. I try to do that. And socializing, I do think that they learn from their peers, or another thing too is that homeschoolers, it doesn't have to be like, for my 10-year-old, he doesn't have to just know other 10-year-olds. He has friends who are 18, he has friends who are 6. It's a mixed age group, And I think that's wonderful too. Um, but trying to make sure that they have those types of social groups so that they can go meet other people, I think is important. And then just, mental health, it's helpful to have, other people to like around. But homeschooling is rarely, except for the quarantine, is rarely being at home. You are usually out and about, doing things, being with other people too.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, Jean, we can talk for hours, and we've done that before many, many times. I call you just with one question, and then I end up talking to you for like hour and a half. So, but I want to be respectful to the viewers' time. If you guys have any questions, please type them in the comment, and I'll ask those questions to Jean and try to get the answers before the session's over today. But so Jean, I know you've shared a lot of the resources that you've used. Can you think of anything else that can be helpful for our parents? Especially, I feel like for me, when I during summertime, I go into kind of like a homeschooling mode with my children. The way
Yeah.
that I pick like different camps for my kids or picking out different museums to go. I try to go like when the day camps are not there, and I try to go a little bit during the less busy time and go and see things and do things that my kids have been talking about throughout the year that we couldn't do during our busy schedule. So, do you have any kind of resource, any information that you would like to share with the viewers?
So that's a really good example of how I think homeschooling looks during the rest of the school year. And we have the benefit of it, think places not being as crowded. So it's very easy to get in and get out and, be able to accomplish a lot. Um, uh, I would look around. If you're not comfortable also with like, I'm talking about how sometimes we just learn from just experiences, from going to places. But also if you're not comfortable with that and you want something a little bit more organized, there are a lot of learning centers. We've also had times or seasons in our homeschooling where we attend some learning centers, which is kind of like a small private school. A lot of the maybe like one room, what is it, one school room classrooms, with mixed ages. But a lot of the learning centers also do try to like organize their classes according to age ranges. So you can check that out too, and be able to set up a schedule for each of your children. You could have math on Mondays. Maybe there was a fascinating class that my really into Harry Potter, and so they had like a whole Harry Potter themed class at our learning center, and so she was able to do projects around that, writing projects around it, and just being able to share that their interest in the Harry Potter characters. But if you see some of these learning centers, they have amazing classes, and they will even mix up some. You have to also think out of the box. Life doesn't, you don't learn things according to science, according to history, according to English, according to math. It all overlaps. And some of these learning centers do take advantage of that, and maybe they'll provide something that is sort of sciencey, but also art. I know that my kids have done something where they had to make models of um, like the lung function, but then make it artistic. They've done like model eyeballs and things like that. That was a really great class too. But the more and more that you look, um, there are just some fantastic. It's so hard to say because it just really is endless. Like some people are so creative with like some things that they've come up with, and so you can go and check those things out and sign up for those. Um, and then I think just really, yeah, try to find some sort of local groups for you, because then that'll be a lot of support and help in terms of finding activities, as well as maybe like oh my gosh, what am I doing for my child is not doing their multiplication or something like that. Some place that you can share with that. And but also another thing too is that I think the timelines that are set up by schools, they're guidelines, but not every child is going to learn what they need to learn at a certain age. Instead of pushing it, sometimes you can give them like a year, and then maybe the next year things will be so easy. Trying to tap into that and knowing that learning happens everywhere is a big benefit, and try to open your mind to thinking how a child can, just develop, and become an adult, and again make sense of the world around us. That's basically the reason for us having these classes at school, is for us to try to learn that, right? So just keep an open mind, I think, is it's such a general thing, but it's really important.
So good. So good. So
I
I
hope,
am sharing
like, I'm
you
just,
to the world today because I've learned so much from you over the years, and I'm hoping that more people will be able to get to know you from our group. So my other question is, can you tell us how we can find you if we have more questions about
oh,
anything,
so
homeschooling life?
we do have a K-pop homeschool Instagram account. You can message me. We've made the decision to make it public because my husband is not a real big fan of that. He really wants to protect us, of course, but I just thought that that would be, a lot of social media, you have to be public, right? And so in order to reach more people and connect with more people. And it's just through that. I haven't done any like Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives. We just post things as documentation for ourselves. But there are some things too that I've been doing on Clubhouse. That's a new sort of platform that both you and I have been taking advantage of. And I'll do something with some of my fellow AAPI homeschoolers because I think that there's a need for that. There's a lot of homeschooling groups, but then I think specifically for those who have grown up Asian, Pacific Islander, Desi, I think it's important to be able to provide a space so that you can ask questions because a lot of us, have grown up with like thinking, oh, we have to go to school, we have to learn academics in order to be able to have a good life, have a good paying job. I think that's a lot of the thinking of our parents and our grandparents because they've lived through different situations in their home countries. But we live in really one of the best countries in the world, the United States. We have so much available to us right now, that I think that we can think a little bit outside of the box, still educating ourselves, and provide like the basics of what we need in order to set up our lives for a successful life, both not just monetarily successful, but just like, being happy with our lives and having, I don't know, contributing to society and things like that. I would look through Clubhouse. You can follow me there, Instagram, and also if you want to just email me, I've I'm so embarrassed because everybody has a Gmail, but I still have my Yahoo account, and so I can give you my Yahoo email so they can send me an email.
All right. Sounds good, Jean. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. You've just been a great role model and a friend to me for so many years, and
Uh,
I am so happy that I get to share you with the group today. So, thank you once.
fun having me.
Thank you. I'm sure this won't be the last time. We'll have other follow-up questions, and especially homeschooling, and also just the whole field of education is changing so much. And actually, the whole world is changing so rapidly. So I'm sure we'll have other follow-up sessions later on. But thank you once again for joining me today, and we'll have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon again.
Thank you. You too. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you so much for joining us today again. This ends our series of speakers to talk about homeschooling for the month of May. I have something else prepared for you guys for the month of June. I am thinking about bringing different contents that's going to be relevant to us as we go enter the summertime with our family. So I have a travel blogger scheduled. I have a few other speakers scheduled for the month of June. So please look out for the announcements within our group page. And if you have any questions, don't feel free to just DM me or put up a post inside our Facebook group. So thank you once again for joining us, and we will see you again soon. Bye.